Hey, I'm Rock.
Hey, Rock.
I just want to start with some gratitude for my higher power, ACA. I'm in the Roswell group and a Johns Creek group, and those groups are just incredible. ACA, the program, is incredible. It's offered me an opportunity to develop a higher power, for which I'm eternally grateful. Our Roswell and Johns Creek groups are mixed meetings in terms of men and women, but we do have quite a few breakoffs that I'm involved in for step work, and I will say those are, for me, those are male groups that I do the step work with. Also very grateful for this inner group. It's incredible how quickly this developed, and I really appreciate the resources it offers to all of the individual groups. Very grateful for my fellow travelers. I don't know if I would be in front of y'all but for this program and those fellow travelers. And I'm also grateful for the opportunity to develop an inner family, which I had not developed before. I had a critical parent, and he is an incredible survivor. But I was not in touch with Little Rock, Teenage Rock, Adolescent Rock, or any of my other inner family members. Can everybody hear me okay? I've been in this program for 2 years as of Labor Day. I started this program because I have kids, and I wanted to be a better dad for my kids, and I did see that I was subjecting them to neglect and abuse, just like I was subjected to when I was a kid. And I didn't know how to not do that, and so here I am. I'm currently developing a loving parent for my inner family. That's been really difficult to do. But this guidebook, Loving Parent Guidebook, has given me quite a few tools to develop a loving parent. And I will read a couple of mantras because it kind of helps me tell my story from a gentle perspective. I have told my story before, but my critical parent is harsh, because that's how he survived. And so, in an effort to be more gentle today, I'm just going to say some mantras to my inner child, and maybe this will, help some folks as well. But this is on page 133 of the Loving Parent Guidebook. These are example messages for your inner child. 1, all your feelings are welcome here. 2 is, I'm here and I'll keep you safe. 3 is, I care about how you feel. 4, this is an adult job. I've got this. Even though it feels like the past, this is different. I love you. You are enough no matter what. There's messages in this guidebook about how to speak to my inner child and my inner teenager in a way that I had not developed and that was not modeled for me growing up. This program has offered an opportunity for me to do a family inventory, for which I'm grateful. I knew about my mom and my dad. My mom is still in rehab. She's 62. She's been an addict my whole life of all substances. She gravitated towards abusive men when I was a child and did whatever drugs those men did. So at first it was alcohol, and then by the time I was a teenager, it was, heroin and other hard substances. It was definitely tough, growing up in that environment. I recognized that putting my hands on my kids, was not appropriate. I also recognized that doing drugs with my kids wasn't appropriate. I did drugs with my mom when I was pretty young. Those were easy for me to see and try not to, duplicate that behavior. But so much dysfunction, covert dysfunction, I just didn't see. Shaming my kids, speaking at them like they're adults, projecting my, my fear and abandonment issues onto them. I've given this story a couple of times. My son, he was like 8 at the time. He's 15 now, and he put his hands on his sister like an 8-year-old boy is supposed to, so to speak. Just normal sibling stuff. And, I got really angry and projected my mom into the equation and saw my daughter as my mom, and strongly responded to my son by kicking him out of the house, literally telling him to go find another place to live. So that's just an example of the dysfunction that I've brought to my family's table. And I'm grateful for the program because, I don't have to carry that shame and unworthiness that I used to carry. This dysfunction has been passed down to me through generations. My great-grandfather was incredibly abusive to my grandfather, I found out. He had tied him to his bed, one time for being, unruly. So he literally handcuffed him to his bed for some period of time. My grandfather was incredibly abusive to my father. There's a story of him, my father grabbing like a hot iron, and him being in the iron he didn't know was hot. It was off the stove, like an old school iron, and he was taking it to my grandfather. And he was so afraid of my grandfather that he carried the iron to my grandfather, and his hands were melting, but he carried it to him. But he said that was, he was more concerned about getting beat by his father. When my dad was 12, and my uncle and 3 aunts were with him, I got 5 total. They were at a fence up in Western Maryland, and my grandfather ended up getting beat to death in front of them. And, my dad really, obviously, my dad, my uncle, and my aunts, really struggled with that. And they continue to struggle with that. My dad passed away, but my uncle passed away, but my aunts continue to struggle with that. Because this is a man who had been very abusive in their lives, but they also had shared with me that they had a lot of love for him. And so, it just resulted in a lot more dysfunction, drugs, alcohol abuse, neglect. But it's just, I'm really grateful for the 4-step in this program because it includes family inventory, and I didn't get that in other programs. It was more of a focus on my own inventory, which I appreciate as well, but this kind of really helped me release some shame and unworthiness that wasn't mine, so to speak. I didn't know my dad. He was in prison literally, but also in his head my whole life. He passed away about a year ago. He OD'd on alcohol. But I do remember a couple of experiences with him. I saw him one time as a child, and we played Nerf guns together. It was pretty cool. The next time I saw him, it was when I was about 18, 19, and I was wild at the time. I picked him up from prison, and he came out, and he was just sharing about how his dad had been, killed in front of him, and that's why he was not a part of my life. And I told him I appreciated that, but that, there wasn't really any words for the exchange between him and I. It was just really a matter of him showing me that he wanted to be a part of my life. We had some sort of acquaintanceship by the time it was all said and done, and thanks to this program, I don't have any hard feelings towards him. I hope he's with his higher power. My mom's side was a little more difficult to get a hold of because my mom's parents are, I don't know, it's like a nuclear family, so to speak. But after I dug in a little bit, I realized my grandmother, she's from Little Italy up in New York, and she was raised by a couple of alcoholics, and kind of helped me understand my mom's disposition and my aunt's disposition, my mom's sister, and they were kind of two sides of the same coin. My aunt's incredibly controlling and like executive kind of mindset. My mom is, the other way. I mean, she just like kind of carefree and not as responsible, not nearly as responsible. But it was incredibly helpful to kind of diagram my family and see this, and understand who I am and where I'm from. So I'm currently going through the most difficult time of my life. But it is also the most opportunistic time of my life, and thanks to this program, I see it for that. I'm divorcing or formalizing a divorce that really happened years ago, but as a result of that, my access to the kids is changing significantly. And like I said at the beginning, but for this program, I don't really think I'd be here making this speech today. I just constantly go back to the serenity prayer, and I stay in my lane and understand what's within my control is just me. I have been able to develop really good relationships with my kids over the past 2 years, and I'm really grateful for that. They share with me that they feel safe for the first time with me, and that they do want me in their lives. And so I'm just grateful for the opportunity to continue to be in their lives. This is, I guess, maybe geared towards beginners a little bit. When I started, my critical parent was a very strong entity. And he remains very strong. I have renamed him Protective Parent thanks to a fellow traveler who shared that concept with me. I'm very grateful for that. He's a protector for sure, and a survivor. I managed to get him in the back seat so that he's not driving all the time. And it's because of him that I'm here today. But he was really ruthless. When I started this program, it was brutal. The first year was really tough. I did not have a loving parent, and the way my inner family interacted and my critical parents spoke to us was just really hard. And so I suppose for those who can identify with a harsh inner voice or a critical parent, the Loving Parent Guidebook is an incredible resource and tool to develop language, really language for me, on how to speak to myself gently. I'll just end with, the same thing I started with. I'm incredibly grateful for ACA, fellow travelers, these meetings, this inner group, the step work. When I started, I wasn't doing step work. I definitely went to meetings a few times to kind of get a feel for it. It was hard to navigate those first few months. I didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing. But, as somebody shared before, there's no right way to do this, so I appreciate that very much. But I will say that for me, the most growth has come from the step work and doing that, like literally going through this yellow book line by line, in excruciating detail with a fellow traveler. And I've done it twice now. I'm on my third round. And also going through the Loving Parent Guidebook line by line. And, developing a loving parent, a loving voice inside of me that I've never had before. Thanks, I'm Rock.
So what we're going to do is open the floor for just a few minutes, and we'll do this after each speaker. If you have questions of the speaker, do want you to, he may or may not decide to answer the question, depending on how you word it, but that's his choice. So if you would like to ask a couple questions, just raise your hand. We'll go ahead and Rock will answer what questions he chooses. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's
Jeff?
Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Rock. Good speech, good story. Very sincere, and imagine very challenging as a father, to kind of come to that realization. I guess, like thinking back, like what was like the life-changing event that like got you into looking at this program that like really got you motivated into this?
That's a great question. I appreciate that. I don't know if I can point to one event. I think it was just a series of events where I started to understand that my exchanges with the children were dysfunctional. My exchanges with my ex-wife were dysfunctional. I would generalize that all exchanges with all my personal relationships were dysfunctional. All the relationships I developed pre-ACA were based on need-based kind of exchange. So these folks were in my life as a result of not necessarily, desire, but as a result of a need. I was feeling a need for them. They were feeling a need for me. And so as I realized that, and then after reading the laundry list, I just decided to come to ACA. But I guess it was really just like my bottom was just awareness of my relationships around me, my non-professional relationships. Professionally, I was all good. Those boundaries in the professional arena, which I just didn't have in my personal arena, and so it's a bit long-winded, but that's what brought me here. Probably mostly the kids, to be honest with you. Looking at them and seeing the dysfunction that they model. Seeing that. Here's a great example. My daughter, a couple of weeks ago, and I shared this with one of my groups, or maybe both of them, was on the couch and got a baby, and the baby's like 10 months. She's crawling up to my daughter, and my daughter's like, basically like, get the hell away from me. If that baby comes near me, I'm going to, smack her, which was, I get there's different responses to this, but because of this program, I responded with, wow, that's great. Thank you so much for expressing your boundaries and your feelings about this, with recognition that I've modeled this, like her expressions were modeled by me. So she's doing the exact same thing I taught her to do, like harsh, critical parent, like get the hell away from me or else kind of thing. This is what I taught her to do. So I finally have realized that it would be insane for me to punish her for expressing a boundary in a harsh way when I haven't modeled anything but, and so the kids are they were the primary reason I'm in this program, but I'll say now, Little Rock and Adolescent Rock and Teenage Rock, my higher power, my inner family are the reason that I remain here. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob.
Hey, Rock. So, in addition to modeling healthy behavior, do you talk to your kids about the program? Do you kind of talk to them, about some of the changes you've gone through and some of the tools that you've learned about?
Absolutely, yeah. Since I started the program a couple years ago, pretty wide open with the kids. They're 13 and 15, and then a baby. But with the 13 and 15-year-old, absolutely, all the time, making amends, which now they're just like, Dad, you've already made enough amends, And I appreciate that. My daughter just said to me last weekend, she's like, you don't have to say you're sorry, you show me. But yeah, I'm wide open with them. I guess age appropriate, but for me, there was no age appropriate because they had already been exposed to so much that it didn't really make a difference what, I'd already exposed them to stuff way beyond their age. Thanks.
Mark, I think you had a question.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your honesty and sharing your pain. You're obviously going through a major change in your life. How do you deal with fear when it starts creeping in? You're not here with us, you're alone, just you in your own head. How do you deal with that fear that a lot of us deal with?
I take a lot of self-care, more than I ever have. This morning I did yoga for a couple hours and meditated, and I do things for myself that was not modeled for me, but that worked for me and helped me stay in my lane and keep with the serenity prayer and understand what's in my control and what's not. And in Roswell we have the ACA serenity prayer really speaks true to me, in terms of me being the only one I can change. I can't change my ex-wife, my kids, my friends, family. I can't change any of that. But I can change me and how I interact with these folks. And a lot of that is detaching with love.
Any more questions?
Obviously, through your share, thank you. But it seems like you've definitely been able to get in touch with your feelings and don't have a problem expressing it. How long did that really take? Before you stopped. Maybe you never felt numb, but how long did that approximately take?
I appreciate that. it wasn't a straight line. My emotions bubbled over throughout my adult life in various ways. I mean, I would be watching a movie and just like a kid movie, you know, like Frozen, and just like be like broken down completely. And I'm, you know, reflecting on that now, it was, you know, just like a volcano erupting. You know, when I saw exchanges between two people, loving exchanges or not loving exchanges, you know, that maybe reminded me of my family of origin, I had a lot of emotions come up. But I may be making this up in your question, but I'll share that through ACA, I have been able to develop a relationship with Little Rock. And that took a while. It's taken the whole time that I've been in this program, 2 years. And he's still scared of me because my inner voice is still sometimes harsh. And so he's not around all the time, but he's around more than ever. And there is a correlation between my outer family and kids and my inner family in terms of the safety they feel. So I do recognize that as my kids share with me that they feel more safe, Little Rock also shares with me that he feels more safe. That's a different question, I think, but you know, it just I don't know. It's definitely not linear, and it's taken quite some time to develop that, and I know I got a lot more work to go.
Thanks, Rock. Let's take time for one more question. Anyone? All right. We're going to take just a few minutes while we switch around, and we have another speaker.